had just signed the papers on my dream country house when my phone buzzed. For the first time in years, I felt free. The air smelled of fresh paint, the walls echoed with silence, and half-unpacked boxes reminded me that this home was truly mine. I wanted to sit in that quiet for hours, soaking in the peace I had worked my whole life for. But when I saw the caller ID, my stomach tightened. It was my daughter. "Hello?" I answered carefully. Her voice came sharp and certain, not even a trace of warmth. "In an hour, we'll be there, with 20. I blinked, thinking I had misheard. "With 20 what?" I asked. She laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. 20 people, Mom. Friends, kids, cousins. We're all coming to see the place. Don't worry. You'll love it." I froze in the middle of the living room. Sunlight poured through the big windows, but suddenly the air felt heavy. This was supposed to be my quiet beginning. My daughter hadn't asked. She hadn't even hinted. She had simply declared, "Why didn't you check with me first?" I asked, forcing calm into my voice. "Because I knew you'd say no," she snapped back. "Mom, you've got a big house now. What's the point if family can't use it?" Her words landed like a slap. Memories flashed. Years of her dismissive tone whenever I struggled with bills, when I worked 2 jobs, when I swallowed my pride to keep food on the table. Now, after I had finally carved out a little dignity for myself, she was talking like this house was already hers to take. "Listen," I said slowly. "I need time to settle in. The boxes aren't even unpacked yet," she sighed, impatient. "You're overthinking this. We'll help break it in. Just relax. We're already on the road. 20 people. I pressed, my voice sharper now. "Who exactly are you bringing?" "Don't worry, Mom," she said, her tone turning smug. "You'll see, that was all. No apology, no respect. Just a decision made for me, as though I had no say." I sat down hard on the edge of a box marked kitchen. My hands trembled, but not from weakness. No, from something deeper. A slow burn of anger I hadn't felt in years. Still, I kept my voice steady. "Fine," I told her. "But remember, this is my house." She didn't respond to that. The line went dead. I stood there, staring at my phone, listening to the silence fill the house again. My chest rose and fell, my mind racing. What did she mean by "you'll see"? What had she told them? For a moment, I tried to convince myself maybe it would be simple. A short visit, a celebration. Maybe she just wanted to share the joy. But deep down, I knew better. Her tone wasn't joy. It was entitlement. I walked to the window, pulling back the curtain just an inch. The gravel driveway shimmered in the afternoon sun, empty and waiting. My house, my sanctuary, already under siege before I had even lived one full day inside it. And then, faint at first but growing louder, I heard it. The rumble of engines, one after another, rolling down my quiet country lane. I pressed my hand against the glass as headlights appeared in the distance. Too many to count. My driveway, the place I had dreamed would hold nothing more than my own car, was about to fill with strangers. My heart thudded in my chest. This was no visit. This was an invasion, and it was only the beginning. Engines roared down my quiet lane. My driveway, once empty, filled with headlights, beams cutting across the front of my country house like a parade I had never invited. Gravel crunched, doors slammed, and laughter carried through the night air. Within minutes, my yard was no longer mine. SUVs and trucks lined the drive, music blasting from rolled-down windows. Strangers spilled out, voices loud, shoes stomping across my fresh porch steps. My heart sank as I counted them. Too many. Far too many. The first to stride up was my daughter, her smile wide, her voice sharp enough to cut. Beside her was a man I had only seen in pictures, her boyfriend. Behind them came children tugging backpacks, women carrying coolers, men with arms full of cases of beer. "Surprise, Mom," my daughter called, waving like she had done me a favor. "Didn't I tell you?" "Mom's got us covered." My stomach tightened. Covered. As though this place were theirs by right. One guest, a heavy-set man with a booming laugh, clapped his hands. Lucky us. A free country house. Couldn't have picked a better weekend. I tried to steady my voice. "Shoes off, please. I just cleaned." They looked at me, then at each other, and laughed as if I had told a joke. Shoes stayed on. Boots tracked dirt across my floors. I followed them inside, trying to keep my composure as champagne corks popped. The fridge door swung open, and my counters became buffet tables. My boxes, half unpacked, carefully labeled, were shoved aside to make space for their bottles and plates. "Mom, relax," my daughter said, draping her arm over the back of my brand new couch as if it were hers. "You've got all this space now. You should be happy we're filling it." I forced myself to breathe. "This is my home, not a vacation rental." Her eyes narrowed, dismissive. "Don't be selfish. Everyone's just here to have fun." Another voice, a woman I didn't know, chimed in as she opened one of my cabinets. "Wow, fully stocked already. Perfect. Feels like we're staying at a resort." Heat rose in my chest. "That's my food." I said firmly. The woman laughed. Well, it's ours for tonight, right? My daughter leaned forward, smirking. Come on, Mom, don't embarrass me. I swallowed hard. She was treating me like the intruder, not the owner. My own daughter. I tried again, quieter but sharper. Nothing here is free, but my words vanished in the noise. Music thumped from a speaker someone had plugged in. Children ran down the hallway, opening doors, shouting. The boyfriend cracked open a beer, leaving the can on my coffee table without a coaster. Inside, I was boiling. Every smile, every careless laugh cut deeper. This house had cost me years of sacrifice. Sleepless nights at work, skipped meals, pennies saved until they became enough. And now, in less than an hour, it had been turned into a circus. I tried small boundaries. That room's off limits. They ignored me. Please don't touch that box. Laughter followed. The final straw came when I walked down the hall to the master bedroom. My bedroom. The door was half open. Inside, the light was on, and there she was, my daughter, kneeling by the dresser, sliding her clothes into my drawers as if they were hers. A suitcase lay open on my bed. Her boyfriend leaned against the wall, scrolling on his phone, not even looking at me. I stood frozen, my hand on the door frame, my pulse pounding in my ears. She turned, casually tossing her hair over her shoulder. Oh good, you're here. I thought it just made sense for me to stay in here. You don't need the big room, Mom. Her words sliced straight through me. My sanctuary, already being claimed right in front of my eyes. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I opened the door to my bedroom and froze. My daughter was already spreading her clothes across my dresser. Silk blouses, designer jeans, perfume bottles, all lined up where my folded sweaters were supposed to be. Her glossy suitcase sprawled open on my bed, dwarfing the neat little stack of boxes I still hadn't had time to unpack. My chest tightened. This was supposed to be my safe place, the one room where I could finally breathe after years of sacrifice. And yet here she was, moving in as though she owned it. She looked up casually, like nothing was wrong. Oh good, you're here, she said, smoothing a dress across the dresser top. I thought it just made sense for me to stay in here. You don't need the big room, Mom. The nerve of it made my hands tremble. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. This is my bedroom. My things belong here. Her boyfriend leaned against the wall, scrolling on his phone, not even glancing at me. The sight of him standing there, so comfortable, so sure he belonged, made my blood run hot. My daughter kept talking, her tone sharp, dismissive. Come on, don't make this a big deal. The kids can take the smaller rooms. You're fine anywhere. I already told them it's practically ours anyway. Her words hit me like a cold slap. Practically ours? What had she told them? That this house, the one I had worked myself to the bone for, was community property. I stood in the doorway, memories flashing, the endless nights working double shifts, the meals I skipped so she could eat, the years I lived in cramped apartments while saving every dollar for this dream. Signing that deed had been the proudest moment of my life. I signed it alone, with my own name written clear and strong. And now, my own daughter was treating my home like spoils to be divided among her friends. I stepped inside and pulled open the closet door. Her jackets already hung there, bright against the empty bar where my clothes should go. Slowly, deliberately, I pushed them aside and set my own boxes on the shelf. She spun around, her face twisting. Stop being selfish, she snapped. The words cut deep. Selfish? After everything I had given her? I turned, meeting her glare with one of my own. My voice shook, not with fear but with anger. This house exists because I refused to give up, because I worked when no one else helped. Don't forget that. For the first time that night, she faltered. Just for a second. Her boyfriend shifted uncomfortably, finally looking up from his phone. But then she laughed bitterly. You always think you're the hero, don't you? I didn't answer. Instead, I began unpacking my things. Each folded shirt a statement. Each drawer I claimed a reminder. This house was mine. Inside, I was still burning, but outwardly, I stayed calm. I would not let her see me break. Later, as I stepped back into the hallway, I heard her voice drop to a whisper. I paused, hidden in the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. She won't stop us, my daughter whispered to her boyfriend. She never does. Her words pierced deeper than any insult she had thrown to my face, and in that moment, I knew. She wasn't just here for a visit. She was here to take everything. I lay awake that night, hearing laughter in my kitchen, and then I heard my daughter's voice, plotting. The sound drifted through the old walls, muffled but unmistakable. My clock read 1:13 a.m., its red digits cutting through the dark. I hadn't slept, not with their footsteps stomping across my floorboards and the occasional burst of drunken cheer. But this was different. There was a sharpness in their laughter, a conspiratorial tone that made my skin prickle. I slipped out of bed, careful with the creak of the floor. The hallway stretched before me, lit faintly by the glow spilling from the kitchen. I stopped just short of the doorway and peered inside. The kitchen, the heart of my home, looked like a battlefield. Wine bottles tipped sideways, corks rolling near the sink. Fast food wrappers mixed with my folded mail. And right in the middle of it all sat my daughter, boyfriend, and 2 of their friends. Papers spread across my table like they owned the place. "She's old," my daughter said, waving her glass dismissively. "We'll handle her. This house will be ours soon." The boyfriend leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Easier than you think. You said she doesn't fight back, right? That she always caves?" "She won't stop us," my daughter replied, her voice as confident as if she were discussing the weather. "She never does." My chest tightened, but I pressed my back to the wall, forcing myself to listen. One of the friends kicked their feet onto a chair. "You could make a killing with this place. Rent it out. Weekenders would pay big bucks. Country houses are gold for Airbnb." They all laughed, the sound hollow and sharp. Airbnb. They weren't just squatting, they were plotting to turn my sanctuary into their business. My pulse hammered in my ears, but beneath the sting of betrayal, something harder began to form. I thought of the day I signed the deed, my hands shaking, the pen nearly slipping. The bank teller had congratulated me, a woman alone, finally holding on to something that was entirely hers. Every sacrifice, every lonely night, every shift I'd taken when I was too tired to stand, it had led to that moment. And now here they were, treating it like a prize to split among themselves. The boyfriend leaned closer to my daughter. "What if she doesn't budge? Old people can be stubborn." "She's weak," my daughter said flatly. "Trust me, I know her. A little pressure, she'll fold. She always does." Each word was a knife. Weak, old, something to handle. I slipped back from the doorway before they could see me. My hands trembled as I padded to my room. Once inside, I flicked on the small lamp and pulled open the bottom drawer of my desk. The deed, the mortgage papers, the receipts that had drained me dry, they were all there. Proof that this house was not theirs to claim. I gathered the stack, my fingers leaving faint sweat marks on the envelopes. My father's voice echoed in my head, words he'd said when I first moved in. "Paper is power. Keep it safe." For the first time in years, I understood the weight of that advice. I crossed to my dresser, pulled out the small metal lockbox I hadn't used since moving day, and slid the papers inside. The key clicked sharply in the lock, sealing not just the documents, but my resolve. No one, least of all my daughter, would erase what I had built. Back in the hallway, the laughter still spilled from the kitchen, louder now, careless. I caught another fragment as I paused. "By next month," my daughter said, her tone confident, "this'll be our place." "She can't stop us." Their glasses clinked in agreement. Something inside me stilled. The hurt was still there, yes, but now it had edges, sharpening into clarity. They thought they were clever. They thought I was weak. They thought wrong. I closed my bedroom door gently, leaned against it, and whispered into the silence of the room, my voice cold and steady. "They think I'm weak. They have no idea." By morning, I had a new plan. If my daughter wanted war, she'd get one, but on my terms. I sat in my study, the only room that still felt untouched. Sunlight slanted across the desk, illuminating the deed I had locked away the night before. Its embossed seal glowed like armor. Beside it sat a mug of black coffee and a fresh notebook. I opened the first page, wrote the date in a deliberate hand, and underlined it twice. From this day forward, everything would be recorded. The house was no longer just my refuge. It was a battlefield. Down the hall, the clatter began again. Footsteps, laughter, the slam of the refrigerator door. My pantry was being raided for the 3rd time this morning. I tightened my grip on the pen but stayed seated. Losing my temper would only give them leverage. Instead, I pressed the record button on my phone and left it angled just so on the desk. Their voices carried easily. "When I'm done, this place will finally feel alive." My daughter's voice drifted down the hallway. I smiled thinly and whispered back to my silent room, "Oh, it's already alive. Just wait." I knew I needed more than anger. I needed proof. Every insult, every careless action, they would all go into this notebook. I began listing: broken lamp in the living room, champagne stain on rug, pantry shelves emptied without asking, guests using my personal bathroom. Each word steadied me, brick by brick building a wall of defense. By mid-morning, I slipped into my bedroom and quietly dialed a number I hadn't used in years. My lawyer answered, his voice calm and clipped. I explained, every detail precise. "Your deed is airtight," he assured me. "Signed, filed, and uncontested. No one can force you out." I exhaled for the first time in days. "So they'd need me to agree?" "Exactly," he said. "Don't sign a thing. And keep records, photos, notes, recordings. If they try anything, you'll have the upper hand." When I hung up, I felt the ground under me shift. I wasn't standing on sand anymore. It was rock. Later, while gathering laundry, I overheard a different conversation. My daughter was hissing at her boyfriend in the guest room, frustration sharpening her words. I told you, I need this place. Do you have any idea how deep I'm in? If Mom doesn't hand it over, I'm screwed. Debt. That was it. Not just greed, but desperation. She wasn't after a fresh start. She was cornered, and I was her way out. I pressed my laundry basket tighter to my chest and moved silently down the hall before they could notice me. The revelation twisted something inside me. My daughter wasn't just careless. She was dangerous, willing to sacrifice me to save herself. That night, I sat again at my desk. The notebook was filling quickly, but now I added another column. Motive. I wrote debt dollars leverage, and beneath it, her weakness, not mine. The more they trampled my boundaries, the calmer I forced myself to appear. I offered polite nods, even smiles, while inside I catalogued every word, every scuff on the walls, every wine bottle left empty on my counter. Let them believe I was harmless. Let them think I was folding, because every smile hit a sharpened edge. By Thursday, I had nearly 50 pages of notes and several hours of recordings stored on my phone. I kept the lockbox key on a chain around my neck, the papers tucked safely inside. The house might look chaotic, but I had order on my side now. That evening, I found my daughter sprawled on the sofa, wine glass in hand, her friends circling like crows. She grinned when she saw me, the grin of someone who thought she'd already won. "We've decided," she announced, her voice carrying like a toast. "We're throwing a big party here this weekend, whether you like it or not." The guests cheered, raising their glasses. My daughter smirked, waiting for me to protest, waiting for the weak woman she believed me to be. But I only smiled back, soft and unreadable. Inside, my pen was already scratching the words onto paper. Big party planned. Evidence-gathering opportunity. War had been declared. And I was ready. Friday night came, and so did 50 strangers on my lawn. Music shook the windows of my brand-new house. Cars lined the gravel drive like an overflowing parking lot. Headlights swept over my yard, trampling grass I had planted myself. Beer bottles clinked. Laughter erupted in bursts. Smoke, cigarettes, maybe worse, curled through the cool evening air. My once quiet country home had become a carnival ground, and I stood at the top of the porch steps, watching the invasion with a steady calm that surprised even me. Inside, every surface was already drowning in chaos. Cups scattered across counters, sticky puddles staining the hardwood. Someone had set up a speaker system in the living room, bass thumping so hard the framed photos on the wall rattled. Guests I'd never seen before lounged on my sofa, their shoes grinding dirt into the fabric. My daughter spotted me in the doorway, her wine glass raised high. "Try and stop us," she shouted, her grin wide and taunting. Cheers rose around her like applause, but I didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I slipped my phone deeper into my pocket, the recordings I'd been collecting ready for this very moment. Tonight was not about losing my temper. It was about springing the trap I had built with patience, page by page, note by note. The night surged on, the chaos spilling into every corner. My pantry stripped bare, beer cans tossed into flower beds, cigarette ash smeared into the wood railing I had sanded by hand. The pressure pressed hard against me, but beneath it all was a rising current of something else, anticipation. And then, like a bell breaking through the din, came the sound I had been waiting for. Sirens. The music faltered, then cut off completely as flashing blue lights filled the windows. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some guests scrambled for the back door. Others froze mid-drink. 2 police officers stepped through the front entrance, their presence sucking the air from the room. "Whose property is this?" one of them asked, his gaze sweeping over the stunned crowd. My daughter stepped forward, stumbling slightly, her confidence cracking. "Well, it's ours. Her words tripped over themselves, useless and thin. I rose from my chair in the corner, calm as a still pond, and held up the thick folder I had retrieved from my study just minutes earlier. "It's mine," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "All mine." I placed the deed squarely on the table, its official seal gleaming under the overhead light. From my pocket, I drew my phone, screen open to the recordings folder. With a single tap, my daughter's own voice filled the room. "She's old. We'll handle her. This house will be ours soon." Gasps rippled through the remaining guests. My daughter's boyfriend shifted uncomfortably, his smirk dissolving. The second officer glanced at the papers, then back at me. "You have proof of ownership?" "Yes," I said. "Signed, filed, and verified. And I have recordings of them plotting to take it from me." The officer gave a sharp nod. "That's enough." The mood of the room shifted instantly. What had moments before been a raucous celebration turned into panic. Guests scrambled to gather their coats, muttering excuses as they fled out the door. Red plastic cups rolled across the floor, abandoned in their haste. My daughter stood frozen, her face pale but her eyes burning with fury. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice shaking as the officers guided her aside. The boyfriend tried to protest, something about family misunderstanding, but the officers weren't interested. They had heard enough. My lawyer arrived minutes later, his presence quiet but firm. He shook the deed in his hand like a shield. "Everything is airtight. They don't have a leg to stand on." The guests who remained shrank back, muttering apologies as they slipped out into the night. One by one, the lights of their cars vanished down the gravel road, leaving the house in eerie silence. The officers pulled my daughter toward the porch, their hands gentle but unyielding. She twisted against their grip just long enough to glare at me, her eyes blazing with something darker than defiance. "You'll regret this, Mom," she spat. "I swear, you'll regret it." The door shut behind them, and the last echo of the party faded into the distance. I stood alone in the wreckage of my living room, the deed clutched to my chest, my heart pounding not with fear but with victory. The trap had sprung, and for the first time since she arrived, I felt the house was mine again. In court, my daughter smiled smugly until the judge read the deed out loud. The marble pillars of the courthouse loomed above me as I stepped inside, their cool permanence a stark contrast to the chaos that had invaded my home. The air smelled of polish and paper, authority layered into every corner. My heels clicked against the stone floor, steady, even though my pulse beat fast. When I entered the courtroom, I saw her, my daughter, already seated at the plaintiff's table. She leaned close to her boyfriend, whispering with a smirk that widened when her eyes met mine. She was dressed sharply, her hair perfect, her confidence radiating as if she believed the walls themselves bent to her will. The judge arrived, robed and stern, and called the session to order. The shuffle of papers quieted, and the weight of the room pressed down. Her lawyer began first, painting a picture of a mother who had promised her only child the family home. "This house," he said smoothly, "was understood to be hers. Our client moved in under that assumption. She simply seeks what was promised." My daughter lifted her chin, nodding along. When the judge's eyes turned to me, my throat tightened, but I forced my voice calm. "Your Honor, the deed is in my name. I signed it. I paid for it. There was never any promise made to give it away." My daughter slammed her palm on the table. "She owes me," she snapped, her voice echoing in the chamber. I looked directly at her, my voice steady. "What I owed I already gave. A childhood, a roof, and my love. This house is mine." The judge raised an eyebrow, then gestured for the bailiff to bring forward the deed. The embossed seal caught the light as he read it aloud, each word striking like a hammer. "Ownership, solely mine." The smugness slipped from my daughter's face, replaced with the first flicker of doubt. But she tried again. "She said it would be mine someday. She promised." Her lawyer pressed her claim further, but then came the moment I had been waiting for. I rose, my folder in hand, and offered the recordings to the court. The judge listened as her voice filled the room. "She's old. We'll handle her. This house will be ours soon." A ripple of murmurs passed through the gallery. Her friends were called to testify, and their words sealed the cracks. One after another, they admitted she had boasted for weeks. "She told us it was her house now," one muttered, unable to meet my eyes. The judge's face hardened. "Entitlement," he said slowly, "is not ownership." My daughter's composure shattered. She rose to her feet, red-faced. "You don't understand. She's always held me back. That house should be mine. I deserve it." But the judge cut her off sharply. "Sit down. This is not about what you think you deserve. It is about law, and the law is clear." The gavel hit once, the sound echoing like a gunshot. My hands trembled under the table, but my face remained calm. Anxiety had been my shadow for weeks, but here, now, it lifted. I had brought the truth, and the truth had held. The judge turned to me. "The court recognizes you as the sole legal owner of the property. All claims against you are dismissed." The gavel struck again, sealing it. The ruling was mine. The house was mine. My life, mine. Across the aisle, my daughter's chair scraped back violently. She stormed from the courtroom, her heels cracking against the tile, her boyfriend scrambling after her. But before she pushed through the doors, she spun and glared at me, her voice sharp enough to slice. "This isn't over. Mom, you'll regret this." And then she was gone, the heavy doors swinging shut, leaving behind only the fading echo of her threat. I exhaled, my hands tightening on the deed the bailiff had returned to me. Vindication hummed through my veins. For the first time since she had arrived on my lawn with headlights and noise, I felt the ground solid under me again. But as I left the courtroom, her words clung like a shadow. "You'll regret this." Silence returned to my country house. For the first time, It was truly mine. The morning sun stretched across the yard, spilling gold over the dewy grass. Birds sang from the trees, their song soft but triumphant, as if they too celebrated the quiet. I stood on the porch with a mug of coffee, breathing in the scent of fresh earth and clean air. No cars, no shouting, no heavy music shaking the walls. Just stillness, just peace. Inside, the rooms gleamed, the bottles, the trash, the stains, gone. I had scrubbed every corner, reclaiming each space inch by inch. The house felt lighter, freer, almost as though it had exhaled along with me. For the first time since I had signed the deed, it felt like a home again. Yet even in that calm, the shadow of my daughter lingered. Her face in the courtroom, twisted with rage. Her words, "You'll regret this," still clung to the walls of my mind. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, when the screen lit up. A message from her. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Can we talk?" For a moment, my heart trembled. The part of me that had raised her, that had sacrificed for her, wanted to reach back across the chasm, to forgive blindly, to let the pain vanish as though none of it had ever happened. But then I read the message again. Short, hollow, not remorse, but convenience. No acknowledgement of what she had done. No mention of the lies, the invasion, the courtroom. Just words, empty and shallow. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then slowly I pressed delete. The silence after was louder than any apology she could have given. I rose and stepped outside, keys jangling in my hand. At the edge of the driveway, I locked the iron gate, sliding the bolt firmly into place. The sound echoed like finality. This boundary wasn't just for her. It was for me. On the way back, I knelt in the garden bed near the porch. The soil was cool and damp under my fingers as I planted new flowers, their green stems standing tall, roots settling deep. Petunias, daisies, marigolds, bright, resilient things that would grow strong in the sunlight. With every seed pressed into the earth, I whispered the same thought. This is mine. This is mine. As I brushed the dirt from my hands, I looked up at the house. White paint gleamed against the morning sky. Curtains swayed gently in the breeze. Every board, every nail, every corner held my story. Not hers, not theirs. Mine. I thought of her text again, of the temptation to soften, to bend. But I knew better now. Family didn't mean surrender. Love didn't mean erasing betrayal. Respect must be earned, even by blood. I stepped back onto the porch, my coffee cooling on the railing, and spoke softly into the morning air, as if the walls themselves needed to hear it. This house is not just walls. It is proof I stood up, for myself. The wind carried my words across the yard, brushing through the flowers I had planted. The sun warmed my shoulders, and for the first time, I didn't just own this house. I belonged to it, and it to me. Peace had returned, and this time I knew it was here to stay. Respect must be earned even by blood. If you believe dignity should always win over greed, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story too.